Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ann Arbor District Library. We are once again happy to host the A2ZERO Sustainability Forum. Tonight's event the forum will last about 70 minutes, and the last 20 minutes will be open for Q&A. Tonight's topic is Electrified Ambition, Exploring Ann Arbor's Strategy for Widespread Electrification. And I would like to introduce our moderator for the evening. Please welcome from the City of Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability and Innovation, Zach Smith.
Please. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to, I don't know, the umpteenth annual kickoff of the sustainability series. Quick question, are we good on Zoom? Are we live there? Cool. All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I know the weather has been kind of funky this week, but I'm glad that it cleared up enough for us to show up tonight. I'm Zach Smith. I am a manager in the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. I've been at the city for about 6 years and have been coordinating these for the past couple, but Jordan Larson is taking over for us, so thank you so much for doing the work to make tonight happen. I really appreciate that. Great. Well, tonight we are discussing electrification throughout Ann Arbor. This is the first of several sessions. Here we go. This is a monthly recurring event for the first 5 months of the year, as it has typically been for the last several. It's from 6 o'clock to 7:30 the last Wednesday of every month, so please join us at future ones. Really briefly tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these future events, but just to give you an idea of what we're doing tonight, I'm going to go through and introduce each of our panelists who have joined us from their specialty fields. We're excited to have each of them here. And then each of them will present on their topic as it pertains to electrification. And then we will open up the floor for some Q&A. And so that's where we will have a microphone that goes in the room. I know that this is not the biggest room, but we will ask that you speak into the microphone so that the folks who are joining us online, as this is a hybrid event, so that they can also hear you. Great, and then let's see here. So this is what we have coming up. Tonight's electrification. Next month's forum topic is on the new HERD ordinance. That's the Home Energy Rating Disclosure Ordinance. This passed council last fall and is going into effect in early March. So this is a timely topic for February. If you own a home or you know somebody who owns a home in Ann Arbor, this will probably be of particular interest to you, as there are new requirements coming forth, as well as so many resources for homeowners. And so we invite you to join us for this. In March, we're going to talk about a circular economy especially of electronics in Ann Arbor. In April, we are going to be discussing how equity intersects with all of the work that we're doing in the A2ZERO plan. And then in May, we're going to be looking at some of the rebates that are coming forth, as well as the exciting Home Energy Advisor, which we're getting off the ground as we speak. The rebates are a result of the millage that passed, let's see, I guess that was 2022 now, right? It wasn't last November. Was it last November? I can't even remember what it was. The good news is that it passed, and that means that residents and businesses in the city of Ann Arbor have access to rebates to do energy efficiency, electrification work, so stay tuned for that. That will be a good one. Okay. Let's see, jumping into it here. I'm sorry, one more housekeeping thing before we do the introductions. I just want to mention that tonight's event is being recorded. So if you want to watch it again, or you know somebody who was really eager to attend tonight but couldn't, You can find it on the Ann Arbor CTN YouTube channel. We have our own sustainability section of the CTN YouTube. But we always do encourage you to come and participate live. It makes it more exciting for all of us. And check out these cool new lights that the AADL has for us. Thank you, AADL, also for your partnership on making this happen. Okay, well, without further ado, let's introduce our panelists. Tonight we have Rika Holly-Velker, Tim Skrotsky, and Jan Culbertson joining us. And they will be presenting in that order. So I will introduce, starting with Rika, who is the manager of the communications section at the Michigan Public Service Commission, where she also serves as the commission's liaison to the legislature and Michigan's 12 federally recognized tribes. In her role, she oversees the commission's external communications, outreach, and customer engagement efforts, advises on numerous policy issues, and serves as the main point of contact for members of the legislature and the tribes. Prior to officially joining the commission in 2019, Rika worked with the commission in her role as the Energy Ombudsman and the Michigan Agency for Energy. In her free time, Rika enjoys baking and has been known to bring treats into the office. I wish I worked with Rika. She lives with her husband, Andy, stepson, Garrett, their 2 cats, and 2 overly energetic dogs in Jackson, Michigan. Tim Skrotsky is the Associate Director for Partnerships for Elevate, a nonprofit who wants everyone to have access to the clean energy economy. Tim's role is conducting business development for Elevate's National Strategic Engagement Team to implement new, innovative, clean energy business models. And Tim has an MBA in Sustainable Real Estate Development from Portland State University and was honored in 2022 as Outstanding Industry Partner by Ryder Cooperative Industries for supporting equitable clean energy deployment in Detroit. And in 2021, as Most Valuable Professional by Corp Magazine for driving economic growth and nurturing community advancements in Michigan. So welcome, Tim. And Jan Culbertson is joining us again up on the stage, who, growing up in Ann Arbor, Jan raised a family here and practiced architecture for 40 years. As senior principal at A3C Collaborative Architecture, she focused on sustainability not only in her practice, but organized Architecture Plus 2030 continuing education sessions for colleagues. Following her retirement from A3C, Jan volunteers as secretary and leads operations for the Ann Arbor Washtenaw 2030 district. Jan is also active in Scioto Township, serving as the chair of the Planning Commission and leads the Environmental Sustainability Task Force. And she enjoys biking, hiking, and kayaking with family and friends. Hurrah for protected bike lanes and e-bikes. Round of applause for our panelists joining us tonight. Thank you so much. So let's begin with Rika, if you wouldn't mind coming on up, and you can take the floor.
All right, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much, Zach and Jordan, and the whole team at the Office of Sustainability and Innovation. We do these types of events at the Commission. I know how much work goes into them, so really appreciate you guys putting this all together. While I'm not necessarily here tonight to talk about the work of my team at the Commission in the communications section, I do just want to take a second to call special attention to my team member, Steve Kimbrell, in the back there. Say hi, Steve. Steve is one of our 2 new community liaisons that the Commission brought on staff in September as we work to build relationships with local communities and community organizations and identify more opportunities to engage with communities and improve our customer education, outreach, and engagement efforts. If you are interested in learning more about this work or opportunities to participate in that work with us, I really hope you'll make time before you leave tonight to introduce yourself to me or to Steve, because we would love the opportunity to talk with you more. Tonight, though, we're talking about electrification. I'm incredibly privileged to be here and to share about the role of the MPSC in this arena. So I'm going to start with a quick overview of the Public Service Commission, who we are, our mission, our role as an agency, and then we'll jump into our efforts in the electrification space. The roots of the Commission go back to 1873, I get to be a little bit of a history nerd at the moment, which I love. Our roots go back to 1873, when the Railroad Commission was formed to regulate the rates of the railroad companies. In the early 1900s, as utility regulation kind of came into vogue, the Railroad Commission was tasked with regulating utility rates, and today the commission continues to carry that mantle of utility regulator. The commission is an independent body made of 3 commissioners. Each are appointed to staggered 6-year terms by the governor with the advice and consent of the Senate. Chair Scripps was appointed in February of 2019. Commissioner Paratic was appointed in 2021, and Commissioner Carrion was appointed last summer, so 2023. We have 195 professional staff who serve as advisors to commissioners and also serve as independent experts in the cases that come before the commission. And these staff are engineers and attorneys, and they have expertise in finance, accounting, auditing, all that kind of good stuff. Now, the commission regulates our investor-owned electric and natural gas utilities. We have licensing functions related to competitive suppliers and telecommunications companies. And we also have responsibilities related to advising the governor on energy emergencies. The commission is a quasi-judicial body, and the commission functions similarly to a court when we address issues that are in contested cases before us. And this is actually really common across the country, and you'll find that some of my commissioners' counterparts in other states are sometimes referred to as judges. Now, the nature of our work does mean that sometimes commissioners and some staff can be subject to rules that prohibit ex parte communications on pending contested matters. Now, our mission is to serve the public by ensuring safe, reliable, and accessible energy and telecommunication services at reasonable rates. Now, in any conversation about what the commission is, should, or could be doing, it's important to understand the framework within which the commission operates. We're a creature of statute, and this means that we have only the authority provided to us by the legislature. So everything we do as it relates to the regulation of the utilities has to be rooted in our statutory authority. And I like to refer to this as the box within which the commission has to operate. Now, our kind of authorizing statute that defines our authority, you'll find it in MCL 460.6. And it gives the commission a pretty broad grant of authority. So we have jurisdiction to regulate investor-owned electric and natural gas utilities. We can regulate all rates, fares, fees, charges, services, rules, conditions of service, and all other matters of formation, operation, and direction of the utilities. And we have the power and jurisdiction to hear and pass upon all matters pertaining to, necessary, or incident to the regulation of the utilities. So this is a really broad grant of authority in statute, but the courts have stepped in and limited this authority in some pretty impactful ways. So specifically, the commission does not have authority to make management decisions for the utilities. We can decide whether expenditures made in accordance with those management decisions are reasonable and prudent. That's the legal standard, and we can deny recovery if they're not, but we can't make those management decisions for the utilities. We also have no common law or equity powers, so there have been times where people have asked us to find that the utilities were responsible for something and to award damages. We can't do that. We don't have that authority. And then it's also within, so that's kind of the framework within which we have to operate, and it's within that framework that our efforts on electrification occur. One key electrification area that the commission has been focused on for the last several years, and it freaks me out a little bit that it's coming up on a decade, but one of the key areas that the commission has been focused on for the last several years is around vehicle electrification. EVs, the challenges and opportunities they might create, and how to address those challenges or take advantage of those opportunities. In the late 2010s, the commission held a series of technical conferences to examine some of these issues and develop proposed utility pilot programs related to electric vehicles. Now, these pilot programs, or ones that were designed based on the discussions that happened in those technical conferences, are being used in utility operations now and they were approved with little to no opposition in the cases where they were initially proposed, which I think is a testament to the work that was done in those work groups and technical conferences. And we know that these electric vehicle pilot programs need to move from pilot program to permanent program, and we've started that process. We also know there are emerging challenges, and just, I think it was last week, but within the last couple of weeks, the Commission held 2 EV technical conferences to begin to explore these issues, particularly those issues that aren't being addressed through the contested case process. The Commission is also active in the state's Council for Future Mobility and Electrification to help kind of plot out broader electrification and mobility strategies for the state. A couple of years ago, the Commission approved a pilot tariff for Alpena Power Company related to geothermal and heat pump systems. That was in 2021, and then in 2022, we approved new tariffs for electric, water, and space heating for UPCO, which is up in the Upper Peninsula. We've also started having the utilities look at the impact of electrification on customer demand through the IRP modeling requirements that were updated in 2022. Does everybody know what an IRP is? Have you heard that term before? Okay. We like our acronyms at the Commission. It's one of the hazards of the job. So the IRP is what's called an Integrated Resource Plan. These were first required under the 2016 energy legislation, and they are long-term plans where the utility comes in, they file an application, and they look at what customer demand is going to look like 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years into the future. And then they present a plan on how they're going to meet that customer demand. The 2016 legislation required that that be filed every 5 years. The 2023 legislation that was signed by the governor in November of 2023 requires that those plans be filed every 4 years. So we'll have those a little bit more frequently in all likelihood moving forward. But the Commission is tasked with setting up the modeling scenarios that the utilities have to look at when they file those plans. How are they going to kind of project what that customer demand looks like? And so we said, you need to look at high electrification growth, high EV adoption rates in those projections as you're looking out into the future. The Commission has done electrification work not only kind of on its own, but those 2023 energy laws that I just referenced also included some pretty significant electrification pieces. I mentioned the 2022 IRP modeling updates that we did, and Public Act 231 has updated the statutory filing requirements to require that those modeling scenarios consider the impacts of electrification on utility demand. And then Public Act 229, this amended Michigan's energy waste reduction laws. One of the things that this did, in addition to increasing the energy waste reduction goals that the utilities are supposed to try and meet, also created what are called efficient electrification measures plans. So these are measures that the utilities are able to, or these are plans that the utilities are able to file that look at electrification and then allow the utilities to count some of those electrification savings in their, or toward their energy waste reduction goals. So these efficient electrification measures plans need to provide health and safety benefits to residents. They need to reduce total energy consumption. They need to reduce greenhouse gases over the lifetime of the measure. And it includes the opportunity for utilities to count savings from heat pumps and building envelopes in those energy waste reduction targets. Another important change to the law with that amendment in 2023 is that the energy waste reduction plans can now look at fuel switching. So before, if you had a natural gas furnace, for instance, you had to replace it with a natural gas furnace if it was going to count for that energy waste reduction rebate. Now, with these changes, you could switch from a natural gas furnace to a more efficient electric furnace and have those rebates be available and have those savings count towards the total energy savings for the utilities. We also have 2 grants that the Commission was tasked with administering. The first of these is the Low Carbon Energy Infrastructure Enhancement and Development Grant, or the Low Carbon EIED grant. because that's less of a mouthful. This was first approved in the 2021-2022 budget year, and a second grant was authorized in the 2022-2023 budget. This is a grant of approximately $50 million for businesses, local units of government, and nonprofits to be used for planning, development, design, acquisition, or construction of low-carbon energy facilities. Now, low-carbon energy facility includes natural gas facilities, or renewable natural gas facilities, combined heat and power, and electrification programs. The RFP for those grants was issued in September of 2022, and we awarded 9 infrastructure grants and 6 planning grants in June. Now, we have in place now the Renewable Energy and Electrification Infrastructure Enhancement and Development Grant. So that's the Renewable Energy EIED grant. This was included in the current year's budget, and it replaced the low carbon EIED grant and includes approximately $21 million for grants to businesses, local units of government, and nonprofits, also to be used for planning, development, design, acquisition, or construction of renewable energy and electrification infrastructure projects. The RFP for this grant was issued a couple of months ago, and we're currently in this inquiry phase where potential applicants are able to ask questions, and we're responding to those answers. We're responding with answers. The second round of inquiries, the responses to those should be out next week, and grant proposals will be due February 21st. Now, both grants included a public comment period where members of the public can review and provide comments related to proposed projects. That will be a 45-day comment period, and following that, the grant applicants will be able to submit revised proposals in response to the comments. Up to 10% of the total grant fund has been designated as potentially for planning grants. And there's also, in this grant, there's an EV charging component to this one that's specifically called out in the legislation that authorized the grant. And it requires that of all of the funds under the grant awarded for EV infrastructure, 75% has to go to infrastructure that provides charging at more than 350 kilowatts, and 25% is for charging under 350 kilowatts. Now, for everybody who, like me, is not an engineer, I talk to the engineers at the commission, and they tell me 350 kilowatts is really, really, really fast. So I do want to also note that renewable natural gas facilities were also included as a technology that qualifies for this grant, just as kind of a point of awareness. And in making the grant selections, the commission is directed to prioritize the goals of the My Healthy Climate Plan, including things like decarbonization, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And the applicants are required to include impact studies that looked at cost savings, environmental impacts, and local economic benefits. We expect to announce awards in September of this year. As we move through the energy transition, we know that electrification is going to play a huge role. And I'm really excited to have the chance to be here with you tonight and share a bit about what we're doing, but I'm really excited to hear from our other panelists about the work that they're doing. If you're interested in following the work of the Commission on this or on the 2023 energy law implementation or any of our other work, I'd encourage you to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can just search Michigan Public Service Commission. We should come up. If you don't, let me know, and we'll have a conversation with somebody to make sure that gets taken care of. Again, thanks so very much for having me here and to everybody for coming out tonight. I'm really excited about the rest of our conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rika. The regulatory side of our work around energy is super critical, and it's something that we follow closely in the OSI as we engage with our energy strategy. So it's really great to have a representative from the MPSC. Thank you for joining us. In addition to the regulatory landscape, it's really important also to consider nonprofits and technical partner organizations and how important they are to the work that we do. So now we'll hear from Tim, the Associate Director for Partnerships at Elevate, to hear about how Elevate is supporting electrification across communities, and municipalities. So Tim.
Hello, everyone. Like he said, I'm Tim Skroksky with Elevate, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the work that Elevate's doing right now. Full disclosure, Elevate currently is working with the city of Ann Arbor on some of these energy efficiency programs. The new rebate program, we're going to be working with the city of Ann Arbor on it. And we are also working with the Public Service Commission on the Low Carbon Energy Infrastructure Enhancement and Development Grant. So, there's no coincidence that we're all up here together today. Elevate is a nonprofit that seeks that everyone has equitable, it seeks an equitable world which everyone has clean and affordable heat, water, and power in their homes and in communities, no matter where they live. Elevate was created about 24 years ago in the city of Chicago. City of Chicago was having rolling blackouts in a hot summer, and people were passing away in their homes. And so Elevate was created as an energy cooperative with philanthropy funding, with state funding, with utility funding, and was enhancing the grid, doing energy efficiency upgrades for affordable multifamily housing. 24 years later, Elevate is still based in Chicago. We have over 200 employees. We have 15 in the state of Michigan, and we're all over the Midwest and even on the West Coast. And we've grown up to doing solar programs, demand response programs, energy efficiency programs, but we're still at our core where we really focus on supporting disinvested communities, affordable housing, and making sure that everyone has a voice in the fight with climate change. And when we think about decarbonization and fighting climate change, we have 4 pillars that we really look at. We look at energy efficiency first, right? We need to insulate your home. Electrification, right? Remove the fossil fuels out of your home. Then, if we can, put renewable energy in your home. That is the ideal scenario in our world. Battery storage, so that you can weather out power outages. We also welcome, the grid, greening the grid, putting, renewable energy on the grid, so that if you can't have solar on your home, and then managing your loads. And I think we're about to go to the video here, and Elevate created a fun little video for everyone to watch, kind of describing this a little more elegant than I can.
When you think of the causes of climate change, you probably think of fossil fuels, which create air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. Fossil fuels can also be found in buildings, which often use natural gas or oil as the main energy source to heat and cool homes. A boiler, gas stove, hot water heater, or furnace that burns fossil fuels in your home create harmful greenhouse gas emissions like carbon dioxide that harm our health and the environment. The solution is building decarbonization, which is the process of reducing or eliminating the emissions that contribute to climate change from a building's energy sources. So how does building decarbonization work? The first step is to make the building as energy efficient as possible by using less energy to operate. For example, adding insulation and air sealing, which makes the building more comfortable and saves money and energy. Another important strategy is electrification. One example is replacing your boiler that burns natural gas with a heat pump that uses only electricity to heat and cool your home. Once a building is all electric, it's important to choose clean, renewable energy. Electricity can still come from fossil fuels, like coal, so we want to use electricity that comes from renewable energy, like solar energy. You can also make a difference by shifting energy use to different times of the day to reduce the impact on the energy grid and reduce carbon emissions even more. And there you have it. These building decarbonization actions are critical in the fight against climate change for everyone, and to help keep buildings safe and affordable for the people who use them.
Wonderful. And so I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about this electrification, right? This phase after we do the energy efficiency in our homes, and what that means and what the technology is. And a lot of this technology is actually technology you're already used to having in your home, you just don't quite know it. Heat pumps, for example, pump heat from the inside to the outside of your home, just similar to your air conditioner, right? So that's a heat pump technology, but air conditioners only provide cooling. Heat pumps run in reverse and also provide heating, right? And then similarly, in your home, your refrigerator uses that same technology to cool your freezer, right? You know what I mean? And so these are the same tools, same technologies. Air conditioner cools your house, and you know, same with your refrigerator, right? And so you've got similar technologies, and then you can take air source heat pumps to heat and cool your home. You can also use that to heat and cool your water, and you know, these lower your environmental impact on your home. It dehumidifies your home, and they're wonderful. But for heat pump hot water heaters, this can be a challenge, right? So Elevate, we do a lot of retrofitting work. We support a lot of affordable housing projects, and this is where you know, the putting heat pumps in your home, that isn't as difficult, but the hot water heat pumps can be, because they cannot be in a closet. So when we think about a lot of the families who live in Ann Arbor, especially this kind of area, a lot of times you're going to have a natural gas hot water heater in a closet. And air source heat pump hot water heaters need to breathe. They need a lot of space around them, right? So in a single family home, in a basement, that will work great, but this won't work great in those situations. So there's all these kind of solutions that Elevate's working on to solve, right? And there are ways to solve that, but I'm just kind of bringing that up. And then your electric panel. This is the thing that I get really kind of excited about and no one really thinks about, but in my humble opinion, this is the first thing that everyone needs to do for electrification, right? You can't put in a new electric stove. So for instance, I live up in Lansing, and Lansing Board of Water and Light, our utility will give you $1,000 for an electric stove, right? So you can get off of natural gas, which is wonderful. But guess what? I had a contractor come in to put the stove in. I don't have space on my electric panel, right? So I have to spend, you know, $1,000 to $3,000, depending how fancy of electric panel I want to buy, to replace that. So even though I get this stove for free from this utility rebate, I still have to spend a couple $1,000s to do it. And so that's a really big deal. Some people may have space on their electric panel to do it, but these are the things that we have to think about. And frankly, if you look at this electric panel, and this is what my electric panel looks like at my home, if you have an older home, you probably just want to replace your electric panel, period, because it's a health and safety issue, right? Electric fires can be, you know, deadly in your homes. So I just wanted to bring up a couple of these like little things that we're looking at for decarbonizing and electrifying people's homes. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the project, right? So what I'm standing up here today is we actually have a Michigan Public Service Commission low carbon energy infrastructure and enhancement development grant from the Public Service Commission. And Elevate is partners with 4 other organizations led by Five Lakes Energy, led by Elevate Energy, Michigan Energy Options, Next Energy in Detroit, and I'm missing one of our partners, but I'll get to them. And anyways, and Slipstream. And this group of nonprofit energy experts are working with 7 different communities. We're working in Ann Arbor, Highland Park, in the Detroit area, Benton Harbor on the west side, Grand Rapids, Traverse City, Lansing, and Flint. And so we kind of have a cohort of wealthier communities and a cohort of disinvested communities. And what we're trying to do is community outreach and getting the input from folks on what their concerns are, what their needs are for electrification in their communities, right? And so that's what we're kind of talking about. And you can see here, this is part of that $50 million first grant, and this was a planning grant to plan out how electrification can work in these communities. And our ultimate goal is to create a toolkit that community members can use to to access funding and understand what electrification means for their community, whether it is by a single-family home or for a block or for an entire neighborhood. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that toolkit in a second. But on this slide, and I'm sure we can share this with the city, but there's a little QR code, and you can hit that QR code, and there's a survey that folks can fill out, and you can give us answers on what your knowledge is, what your feelings are, and some different questions that we're asking everyone across the state of Michigan to get their input on electrification and electrification programs. So this is a little bit in depth about our project here. And the whole idea is this toolkit is going to measure, is going to address energy burden on families. So we're going to look at, the toolkit's going to model, if you have a project, you can input all this information into our toolkit. And I'll kind of talk about the way the toolkit will work in a second, but we're going to address energy burden, reduction of carbon emissions, improved health impacts, and the creation of jobs, like economic impact from decarbonization and electrification of housing in each one of these communities, right? And we're going to have this toolkit that people can easily use to understand that. And here's the kind of toolkit functionality. So it starts up here in the project specifications box up in that left-hand corner. And that's where if you have a project and you want to electrify your home, you can input information about what features you're going to do. If you're going to put insulation in, if you're going to put air source heat pumps in, if you're going to put solar on your roof, and you could put those specifications in. We have two different sections that you're going to go to in this toolkit. One is going to look at the load profiles, and that is basically a fancy word for how much electricity and how much natural gas your home is using. And you can either put that information in for your own home or your project. Some people may have a larger electrification project, like the city of Ann Arbor may want to electrify an entire neighborhood or something like that, right? And so they may look at how this may impact the entire neighborhood, and they may put load profiles, assuming an entire neighborhood. But let's just use a single-family home because it'll just be easier to follow. So there's a load profile that you can put in for your home. We also have the National Renewable Energy has load profiles for homes, the average home in the state of Michigan. And so you don't have to input that input. You can either put that your own load profile, or you can use an automated load profile that's based on an average home, right? And so the idea is this toolkit can be used by many different people. It can either be very specifically tailored to it, or you can use some of these generic assumptions. Same with cost assumptions. You may know exactly how much money you're going to spend. You can put your own cost assumptions in. We are also going to have in the toolkit, if you say you're going to do air source heat pump, air source hot water heater, and solar, we're going to have costs in there. And you can just check a box and it'll automatically put that in. So from the cost assumptions, that'll automatically go right into an economic jobs calculator, and it'll show you how much money is being invested. Now, on your single-family home, if you put in, I'm going to spend $50,000 in your home, it's not going to show a huge increase in jobs. But if the city of Ann Arbor puts in, we're going to spend $1 million on this, you're going to see some job increases, right? Some economic impact. So there'll be a little bit of different of a output, but you will get an output, right? It's going to be a very low output for just your one little project. And then our calculator will calculate the energy changes in your home. And this is a really important one because if you have an old home and you have insulation that's not sufficient and you decide to put air source heat pumps in it, well, the energy changes in your home or the cost changes in your home aren't going to be great. Right? You're going to probably increase your energy burden, not decrease it, because electricity costs more to heat and cool your home than natural gas does. So if you don't insulate your home, you don't make your home energy efficient, you could actually increase your energy burden by doing some of this electrification work, right? And so it's important to know that, and our calculator is going to show you that if you choose not to put the insulation in that first kind of project specs, right? Our model is also going to have your utility rates, so you can either put in how much you're paying, what rate schedule you're on with DTE, how much you're paying per kilowatt hour, or natural gas, or it'll automatically assume a default rate that most people in DTE are paying. And that's going to be your utility consumer financial impact. That's your energy burden. And then our calculator is also going to calculate the emissions, right? How many emissions, what are your emission savings from putting air source heat pumps, solar, energy efficiency into your home? Those calculations will go into it. And then those calculations will also look at the societal costs of reducing greenhouse gases in the community and what kind of impact that's going to have on health, and other societal impacts. And the neat part about this is these are some of the very things that the Public Service Commission evaluates utility projects on, right? And so we're trying to level the playing field so that communities, nonprofits, developers, homeowners can assess, you know, what impact their project may have at the same level that the Public Service Commission is assessing what the utilities are doing for some of their projects, right? And so we're trying to level that playing field. And this toolkit is going to be made available sometime this spring, right? And so we're going to have another session where we're going to share that with folks and kind of show it in a little more detail. And so why are we doing this, right? Funding, right? There's all this funding coming down. We already mentioned this one, the new Public Service Commission Renewable Energy and Electrification Infrastructure Enhancement Development Program. There's $21 million that's coming up in February. We know, you know, I'm not 100% the city of Ann Arbor is going after this, but I'm pretty sure they are. And a lot of communities are going after this funding. And Elevate has grant writers who are helping some of our disinvested communities going after this. So, you know, not only do we help manage, do community input, but we also help some of the smaller nonprofits, some of the other communities go after this funding. And then coming later this year, which is very exciting as well, is the High Efficiency Electrification Rebate Act from the federal government. This is an Inflation Reduction Act funding. And for our low-income families, there'll be $14,000 per income qualified home. And this varies, you know, so all these things that I was kind of talking about that, you know, is going to take place in a home. We're talking about heat pumps for water, heat pumps for heating and cooling, the electric stove, the electric load service center upgrades, right? That's your electric panel, air sealing and ventilation, all these things that we're talking about. There are funding, and this can be, if you have a multifamily, if you have an affordable multifamily building, you can get $14,000 per unit to make these upgrades. Now, for the common family in Ann Arbor, right, the market rate families, the IRA, you know, you're not going to get the $14,000 rebate. You're going to get a tax credit of about $2,000 per year. And one of the strategies for that is that's per year. So if you are looking at 2024, you could do a project in fall 2024 or summer 2024 and then do the other half of the project in 2025, and you can get $4,000 off by just breaking your project in half, right? So those are some of the ways you can think about doing these projects, right? And I know for me personally, I'm looking at electrifying my home. I'm looking at piecemeal, right? Like I need to do electric panel, then I can get that stove in. And then I can think about air source heat pumps is my next phase, right? Assuming that you've already done insulation and energy efficiency in your home. And so here is a little bit of a kind of a roadmap of our project. So the community engagement, we'd started in fall 2023. We're still kind of going into our winter session here with focus groups. Part of that focus group is that survey that I shared with everyone, and I can share that QR code again. And, you know, we're just looking to introduce folks to the toolkit right now, and that's what I've done today. And then we're going to do some focus groups this winter, and we're going to get people to do interviews. We actually have gift cards for folks to do interviews. So, you know, if anybody's interested, let us know. You can get on a focus group or do an interview, and then we'll hand out some gift cards for folks to do that. And then after we collect all this information and after we create the toolkit, we're going to share the toolkit with folks and show people how it's going to work, later in this fall, which is not going to be that far from now. March, April, we're hoping to kind of share the toolkit and get one final reaction for folks. And then ultimately, really, it's not just to show you the toolkit and you can play with the toolkit and it'll be fun to see what's going on. We want to use the toolkit so that each community can get more funding, right? Home repair, weatherization, electrification, solar, right? Enhance the work that the City of Ann Arbor and the Office of Sustainability is doing with those rebates, but also get all that federal funding in the hands of folks, right? And really make a strong difference here, moving forward with home electrification, right? That's our big goal. And I think that is it. So, and there the QR codes right there again. We love for folks and share it far and wide. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Tim. It's kind of a nice mesh having these panels up here, because as applicants of the low carbon EIED grant from the MPSC, which hopefully you've been taking notes for all the acronyms, the Energy Infrastructure Enhancement and Development Grant through the Michigan Public Service Commission. The toolkit that Elevate's putting together is super helpful to us here at the city. I hope that you find it helpful as well. Our collaboration with Elevate extends far beyond this particular grant. We have been working, the OSI, with Elevate as they support and consult with us on numerous projects that we do in the office. So we're really grateful to have representation up here from Elevate, because nonprofits and technical partners are really a critical piece of the electrification and efficiency process. So speaking of important partners, that looking more locally here to Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County, and someone who we couldn't do a lot of the work that we do without is Jan Culbertson with the 2030 district. So what's the 2030 district, you might be asking? What do they do to promote electrification and other energy and sustainability improvements? How do commercial and multifamily buildings factor into all of this? Well, I'm going to hand that over to Jan Culbertson to explain. Welcome, Jan. Yes. Yep, just there.
Just this one. Great. Well, thank you. It's great to be here. And also, I've learned a lot just listening to the other speakers. So I hope people can also learn from our presentation. So we actually have a new logo, and it is Ann Arbor, Washtenaw 2030 District. And it used to be Ann Arbor, and we've been working with the county, and since they launched their Resilient Washtenaw, we are now serving all of Washtenaw County. So that's a big jump for us. We've grown quite a bit. We have 3 classifications of membership. We have property owners, professional stakeholders, and community organizations. We're up to about 680 buildings and almost 21 million square feet, and 98% of that square footage is benchmarking. And that has an awful lot to do with the benchmarking ordinance. So we launched in 2018, and this is what has happened in the last few years. And if you ask, is the benchmarking ordinance working? The benchmarking ordinance is working. Now, once people start measuring and we're meeting with them and saying, this is how your building responds, they want to do something about it. So we've created best practice groups. We have a House of Worship Green Team, and we have about 50 members, and we're partnering with Solar Faithful. And Solar Faithful helps with electrification and renewable energy for houses of worship. We have a group of 20 members for our multifamily. It's going to grow because we're just launching again for this year. And we partner with the Washtenaw Area Apartment Association. And I can see that I have a timer on this. We're launching a restaurant bar group and partnering again with OSI. They're launching a sustainable food business coalition. So we're going to work with the energy and the water efficiency, and they're focusing on food waste and the local food system. Great partnership. And just talking, we really promote kind of energy management best practices. You want to benchmark and track, you want to do an audit, you want to improve your energy efficiency and transition to renewable energy. So that's sort of the formula. How do we do that? We provide benchmarking assistance. So we actually set people up on Energy Star Portfolio Manager. We have several other tools where people who have multiple portfolios can actually compare the different buildings that they have and see which one may need the most attention first. We also launched, again with OSI, a commercial solarized program, and we have a common request for proposal that we can help. We do feasibilities, we review your first bills, we review the proposals, so this is all really support for that whole commercial multifamily group. We're kind of data geeks, and so we have a lot of data that we compile, and I forgot to introduce Ben. Ben Rose is our AmeriCorps Vista member with the 2030 district, and he's mostly our data geek. So, the other thing that's really key to what we do is our energy management grant program. This year, we've budgeted $85,000 that goes to our members, and that energy management grant can be used in multiple ways. Most people, if they have not done an energy audit, we have an auditor that gives us it's 12 cents a square foot basically, and nobody can audit. Engineers and so forth are much higher than that. So we really have, and these are ASHRAE level 2 audits that give you an appendix with the products that might be suggested. There's a spreadsheet you can give to a contractor to do a lighting upgrade. It's a very useful document. Some of our members have already had an energy audit, so we have, it can be used toward a decarbonization plan, or if your energy audit said, boy, that HVAC system is not working right, you can use it for retro-commissioning. So this is something that we're supported by the City of Ann Arbor, DTE, and Eagle, and about 3/4 of the funds that we receive go out in these energy management grants. So we're very lucky to make use of AmeriCorps and SEAS students and a lot of volunteers. So that makes it happen. And the other thing that we do is we have a monthly implementing the A2ZERO carbon neutrality plan. And our next session, it's the second Tuesday of every month, and we're looking at all electric food service, and M Dining is presenting along with the folks that are designing the new dorm, which is an all-electric dorm with all-electric food service, and this will be the first for the University of Michigan. This should go up on our website shortly, and it's always free, it's virtual. We also record them and have the presentations available. And in fact, this is the 3rd year, and all of the recordings are on our website, so you're welcome to dig into that. The other thing, we do an annual summit, and this year it's going to be June 26th. We have workshops that are particularly suited for municipalities, nonprofits, multifamily. We talk about electrification strategies. We have our partnering organizations there and partnering professional stakeholders. And we talk about funding. We do a little networking, food, and fun, and awards. So that's sort of in a nutshell what we do. Glad to answer any questions. And oh, by the way, it's free to join for any property owner or tenant.
Thank you so much, Jan. Great. Well, thank you all of our panelists. We'll transition to Q&A here in just a moment, but just sort of as a reminder that tonight's session was really to sort of highlight and showcase how important partnerships are to our work in the electrification and energy efficiency space. And we didn't, we intentionally wanted to focus on the folks who are helping to make this work happen rather than on the city's initiatives, because we'll be diving deeper into those into later sessions. But just to give you kind of a brief overview of some of the things that the city is working on that many of you might already be familiar with are things like the commercial benchmarking program that Jan mentioned, the home energy rating disclosure ordinance, which is next month's topic. It's a new ordinance. We're also working on a green rental housing program so that tenants in the city of Ann Arbor can also expect a basic standard of sustainability and energy efficiency in their rental units. We're exploring a sustainable energy utility. So lots of different initiatives. And I do want to also highlight a couple of upcoming programs that are anticipated to launch in 2024. We're really building a lot of steam in the OSI, and it's really exciting. There's a lot of stuff coming forward. So in April is our expected launch of the rebates that I mentioned at the beginning of tonight. It'll be just shy of about $2 million that will be available to residents, homeowners, business owners, and even tenants, not just homeowners. So everybody can kind of access these. We'll have more information on those coming out. The Home Energy Advisor Program is something that is really exciting that we are proud to be contracting with Walker Miller out of Detroit to help implement. And this is something that has also been long in the works. Many of these initiatives have been in the works for years and years, and they're finally coming to light. But the Home Energy Advisor Program is a process of developing a really customized, individualized path to net zero. So this is something that not just homeowners, but also landlords, and hopefully tenants as well can access to get an energy audit, and the advisor will walk you through what you can do, how to prioritize things financially, how to prioritize things with your specific timeline, and point you in the right direction of all of the rebates and resources that you can use to make that happen. It's going to be a really exciting program. I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, one of the best ways to stay engaged as you're able is to attend more of these events. We have a lot coming up. Like I said, 2024 is going to be a big year for the Office of Sustainability. We've been each year building more steam, and it's really exciting to see as we progress. I think more and more things are going to be coming out each year. So stay tuned as you're available. Come to events like these. You can also sign up for our newsletter. The OSI has our own newsletter that is one of the best ways to stay up to date on the events that are happening all the time. So if you want to learn more about those, please look into that. And then as it pertains to electrification, we will be doing, I think this will be the 3rd annual Electrification Expo. It was something that we did back in 2021 or 2. I'm terrible with dates, as we've learned tonight. But the first one, we weren't sure what to expect and put it on, and it was such a huge success that we had vendors who were at that begging us to do another. They said, we need to do this again, please. And so we did it again last year, and it was just as big of a hit. So we invite you to come through. It's a great place to learn about electrification. For example, just to clue you in, Tim mentioned like getting a heat pump in your home. Well, where do you begin with that? There are heat pump contractors at the Electrification Expo. They can talk to you about your home and how to get it installed. And there are resources like Michigan Saves, who is a green bank who can help you finance this. So it's really a great place to connect all of the dots. Please check it out. We look forward to seeing you there. So with that, we can transition to Q&A. So we have a microphone for our audience here, and I believe that we are also accepting Q&A through the chat on Zoom, maybe?
Be able to open the Q&A feature.
Okay, great. Then maybe I can let you take over the screen, Tyler, so that I can exit this. Is that cool? And we'll just go to perfect. Great. Well, if you are joining us online, please feel free to use the Q&A to drop any questions there, and we'll get to those. Otherwise, we have questions in the audience.
Yeah, this is a question, I guess, for Tim, because you referenced dividing projects up into small bits because of the dynamics of rebates and so forth. My background is in healthcare, and the model that I think about is the team meeting, where the different disciplines, nursing, MDs, occupational therapy, social work, we all get together and come up with a holistic plan. And, we've done everything in our house except for the gas dryer. It's cost us way too much money. We've had to do things, although I got a better deal on my electrical panel upgrade than you did, so we stuck.
Let's talk.
But as the homeowner person, I felt like I was having to lead the team, and I'm a retired clinical psychologist. And what I don't see is using the efficiency of getting the different disciplines involved in the same project in the same time, even though you can't do everything at once, but so you can do the future planning and do it efficiently and effectively and especially cost effectively by working in a more collaborative way.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's something that elevates definitely trying to, figure out for ourselves, right? We need general contractors, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're getting at, right? A general contractor who can bring in the insulation, the air source heat pumps, and do it all efficiently, so.
Well, I don't know, because then they would charge an extra fee on top.
Fair enough, yeah.
And it doesn't do much for dividing it up over time.
Sure.
To make it cost effective, so.
Yeah. It's a challenge.
Yeah, that's exactly one of the things that the HEA, the Home Energy Advisor that's forthcoming, is looking to address, is trying to pull all of that together to help set up those timelines. We have held over the last couple of years a number of contractor convenings where we are bringing together the heat pump installers, window installers, insulation contractors, energy efficiency auditors, et cetera, and pulling them into the same room. And what we've spent entire afternoons, provide them lunch and dig into the details. How can we make this a smoother process for everybody? And it's something that it's new. I mean, we're trying to change a lot of things all at once, and there is some processes involved. And so it's might be some growing pains and a bumpy road to get there, but it's something that absolutely needs more attention, and we're trying to give it that to smooth that out and make it easy for everybody.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to hear that wasn't great.
And there can be a challenge with everyone. We always want to say, do energy efficiency first, right? Make sure your home is very energy efficient before you electrify. But if you were to follow what a general contractor would do in your home, if you were to rehab it, they would upgrade your electrical first and then put insulation in the walls, because the electrician's going to go into your attic, remove all the insulation, or go through a wall and remove insulation, right? And then it just ruins your perfectly insulated home, right? So ideally you would get that electric panel upgraded first and then do energy efficiency. So there's huge challenges, right? Because we really want people's homes to be energy efficient before they electrify, but you should really get that electrical fixed before.
Hi, thank you very much for putting this on, and I appreciated all of the speakers, though as I'm pretty enlightened about this topic, and we've been working on it in our own home also, I found this pretty technical and pretty confusing about where I would break into the circle. And I'm just wondering if we're trying to spread this out to more people, if it could be, if we could aim at the mean a little bit. I mean, I appreciate the information. Some of it could be background information and just simplified a bit, because we really, all of us want to influence more people and get more participants. My second question is, I'm just really interested in the source of funding of you all. So this is a little bit about follow the money. and where are the incentives for you all to do your work? So I should know how the Michigan Public Service Commission is funded, but I don't. And that's more knowable, but I certainly don't know about the other two groups. So if you could just briefly address that, I would appreciate it.
Sure. I'll start. So the Public Service Commission is a part of state government. So our budget is from, we have two main line items that fund our budget. There's the Public Utility Assessment Fund, and then there are federal Department of Transportation grants that fund a portion of our gas safety work. And all of that is appropriated to us by the legislature. And that the Public Utility Assessment Fund is funded through assessments on all of the regulated entities. So the regulated electric utilities, the investor-owned utilities, and the cooperative utilities. It's imposed on some of the telecommunications companies as well. So it's kind of a broad set of where that actual funding is coming from into that fund, but then it's appropriated by the legislature. And I think to kind of your first point, this is a super technical space, and one of the things that we're trying to work on from the perspective of the commission is trying to help make all of this more accessible through our work with Steve and working with community partners and kind of looking at what are new and innovative ways to reach people and do it in a way that makes all of this more accessible for them.
So Elevate, we're a nonprofit, so we're grant funded, but our grants come from a lot of different sources. So, I like to say, it's not a perfect math, but it's like 30% from federal funding, the Department of Energy, Environmental Protection Agency kind of type funding, 30% from philanthropy like Kresge Foundation and MacArthur Foundation, and then another 30% from working directly with like municipalities like the city of Ann Arbor funds some, we get to kind of it's almost like just you being a contractor for them, but we're doing work that's really focused on housing and affordable housing and stuff like that. So it's kind of 30, 30, 30 kind of thing, right? That doesn't equal 100%, but there's a little bit of.
Great. And the 2030 district, our funding comes from the city of Ann Arbor, Eagle, which is the state, and DTE, because we are doing energy waste reduction. And I'm really looking forward to, and I was going to ask Rika about this, is when with the updated legislation with EWR being able to do the energy transition, that hasn't come out yet, right? It will be 2025, do you know?
Yeah, so the statute itself is effective February 13th. But I think the new plans actually have to be filed, I think February of 25 is what we're looking at for the new plans. But there were a lot of dates in that legislation, so we can double check it.
Because I want to push, but in any event. And then we, a small portion of our funding comes out from our professional stakeholders, which primarily in Ann Arbor are architects. They've supported the launch of the 2030 district. And our total revenues are less than $200,000, and $85,000 of that goes out in energy management grants.
Thank you.
Thanks. I am interested in kind of a point of pressure in terms of particularly heating. I know of at least 4 instances of people I know personally who had a furnace failure this winter, and boom, they could get a new gas furnace in a day or 2 days. And I think that's a real challenge for this, because I've also gone through the process of getting a heat pump. It took quite a few months and thoughtful planning. I did know that we were going to do this, ahead of time. And I know you've got the sticker thing, but I think there needs to be someplace else earlier to intervene in people's thought processes so that they think of moving forward with this kind of thing. So I know that you're working with the funding and the rebates and all, but is there another way? Is there a way to like use the city permitting system and say, when was the last time all the furnaces were replaced, and kind of project and reach out to people so that they have that year or so ahead of time to do some investigation and planning?
That sounds like a question for me, I think. We're working on it. Yes, we are. It's exactly where your mind is at is where we've been exploring this, is looking at permit history, trying to anticipate when things are getting replaced. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, that's why the HEA, the Home Energy Advisor, is a program that we are investing resources into, because that is a program where we want to get into people's homes and help them understand what they can do and set a pathway so that they can prepare before it goes out, simultaneously, before your furnace goes out and you need the replacement in an emergency situation, for instance. And simultaneously, we're working with contractors in a proactive way to help them be prepared to respond to emergency situations with the more energy efficient options. And one of the ways, for example, that we've done that is through Michigan Saves, who is the green bank that we've actually done a session, I think it was last year, on that. So you can find a recording online and get more information if you'd like. But we have set up an electrification badge. So when you are looking for contractors, there's a contractor locator tool at the Michigan Saves website. And you can look for contractors that participate in electrification and energy efficiency work. And the ones that have worked with the city of Ann Arbor to understand electrification and energy efficiency priorities will have an orange badge that says they're an electrification contractor. And so we are trying, we're working with Michigan Saves as well as contractors directly to help them understand what our goals are. I think as we start rolling out some of the rebates, that will also be some incentive for folks to be prioritizing the more efficient options to the fossil fuel burning options that are in our homes right now. And building a little bit on what Tim said a moment ago about how if you work with a contractor, they might have a different pathway for it. That's absolutely right. It also, there's the X factor that there are some things you can't plan for. You might have your everything mapped out, and then your gas water heater goes out, you need a replacement right now. Especially during some of these power outages, it takes a lot to be prepared. And that, I'm gonna keep tooting that horn, I guess, but the Home Energy Advisor is designed to address that. And so that's what we're working really hard to iron out.
There's new technology that's coming out. Just envision, your air conditioner. I talked about this earlier. Your air conditioner is an air source heat pump, but it only cools. Just imagine just plopping that thing out and putting an air source heat pump right where that thing is, and it pushes hot and warm air right into your house, right through your ducts. Right, you know what I mean? And so they're working on that technology where all they have to do is take out the air conditioner and put in a unit that sits right where your air conditioner used to be, and it pushes hot and cool air, and your furnace just stays where it is and pushes the air and does nothing else. Right, so there's, we're not there yet, but that technology is coming really fast, and when the innovation hits, that's when everyone's home will be able to do it, right? So it's just, we're just a little bit on the first adopter side.
And I'm just going to get just a tad technical. One of the things that we realize, and I'm an architect, and I am still working on electrifying my house. And one thing that dawned on me is my hot water heater and my boiler heat where my water comes in, because I have a well. And if I remove all those heat sources, I'm going to have to supply a heat source to that room. But in any event, we found that sizing a heat pump, just talking with a series of folks, contractors, even electric badge contractors will say, you know, you have to oversize the heat pump, and then you have humidification problems, and then you have this and this. So it isn't a clear path, and actually Ben is working on a calculator for helping to size heat pumps, because a lot of contractors use what's called manual J and model. And if it's an existing home, my goodness, you have your gas and your electric use, and you can, the gas use, you can figure out, you know, what portion of that is heating and hot water and how to size the heat pump appropriately. But it's incredibly important to do the air sealing and the insulation first. Otherwise, there is an additional energy burden there with cost.
You know, Jan, because you mentioned your situation at your house, I'm going to direct this question from online to you and see if you can, what insight you might have. This person has baseboard hot water heating, and they want to replace their gas-fired boiler. What are my lowest cost options for electrifying?
Yeah, they do have, there are a couple manufacturers that have heat pump boilers now. And so that should also be, because hot water works. There are some actually homes in Ann Arbor that have steam. That isn't, we don't have a technology for that right now, but we do have, there are heat pump boilers that are available.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. This is sort of, and I apologize in advance, I think I'm gonna try to weave together like a lot of pieces here and hopefully come out with like a question that makes sense. But this is kind of more aimed at the relationship between the work that Elevate is doing right now on the toolkit that will be made available soon, that was made with planning grant money, right, from an MPSC grant from last year. And it seems like the toolkit is going to allow a lot of groups to participate in this current grant that's going on by answering questions related to the impact studies that are being asked, right, about health and cost. And because MPSC was aware of that planning grant since they granted it, and that just seems like a significant barrier for a lot of applicants. I'm wondering why MPSC opened up a grant for that's happening now, when the information from Elevate isn't quite available for that yet. And related to that, I guess I'm wondering why MPSC doesn't ask utility companies to provide that type of information to kind of open up more applicants for these types of grant opportunities. And then related to tonight's topic, you know, who are the best applicants from a place like Ann Arbor for the grant opportunity that's being provided by MPSC?
I mean, we asked the same question, and unfortunately, the MPSC, I'll answer it for you, hands were tied because the legislature said the money had to go out by a certain time. So they had, so blame our politicians, and I don't think the politicians knew about my project. And they said this money had to go out 6 months after it was approved or something like that, and so it had to go out, and that's why their dates are the way they are. So we were upset too at first. We were like, why did you do that? And then they said, oh, we didn't choose to do that.
We're not trying to upset anybody.
So
Yeah, there's a date by which we have to have stuff awarded, and so we backed everything off, like we backed the grant timeline off of that date.
So yeah, so unfortunately, our politicians weren't thinking that through. So we, Elevate does, and the modeling team are supporting some organizations. So folks who do want to kind of do beta testing with our thing, we are supporting a few of our communities to go after that funding using the beta testing. So the general public won't have it, but let me know if you know an organization who wants to. We're trying to get it ready so that we can use it for a few folks this month. Well, it's almost February, right? Yeah. And the utilities do have to do this stuff for the Public Service Commission, but they only do it for themselves. But, so you're right, right? In theory, they could be doing it for everyone, but.
And I guess just that last question I had of, thank you very much, by the way, that was helpful. But just, we're talking about widespread electrification in Ann Arbor, and I'm wondering what maybe all of you think are the right types of groups in the city of Ann Arbor to go after opportunities like the MPSC one or other opportunities that were discussed today to make a meaningful push in that direction of widespread electrification.
Well, we were just talking about this before. Public Service Commission money, even though it's available to everyone, it is really ideally suited for our utilities and our municipalities, right? Elevate's had a lot of experience in this, and we've actually, have a really great partnerships, not just with the city of Ann Arbor, but many city of Grand Rapids and the city of Lansing. And really the best way for at least this funding from the Public Service Commission is to push it through the cities, right? To push it, they are the best capable of handling the Public Service Commission's requirements on how to spend money, and then they can push it down to the citizens, right? And that's what the city of Ann Arbor is doing in that essence. The federal funding, we'll see how it comes. A lot of that's flowing through EGLE, our, Environmental, Great Lakes and Energy Department, and how those rebate, High Efficiency Electrification Rebate Act is going to come out. That's supposed to come out as like kind of a rebate program for contractors to directly tap into, kind of like our utility programs do. The best money is the money coming from philanthropy, right? That's the easiest money to put right back into the community. So at least from our little nonprofit world, that is the best way for us to get money to folks.
I think we had a question back there.
Who had their hand up first?
We'll do one more.
Okay. We only got time for one more.
So I had a really quick question about the kind of building off the ideal applicant structure. And have you been seeing a lot of particular city structures that are investing in applying for these grants, or if they're starting out with their cities like high density areas and then moving out more into like the general counties and rural areas? And thinking about that toolkit, have you kind of adjusted things to consider those density differences? Folks who are in more rural areas that might not have access to events like these, or just aren't as invested in electrification because of their historic backgrounds.
Well, Ann Arbor is focusing on the Bryant neighborhood.
That's
We
right.
just start there, right? So that's a a disinvested neighborhood in the city of Ann Arbor. For rural work, that's a great question. I don't think there's a big push that I know of that's pushing towards electrification in rural areas, right? I think that might be a missing piece. That's something to think about, right? So I don't have a good answer for that.
I think, as far as, letting people know about these opportunities, when we release RFPs, when we do stuff like that, we send press releases out. And so you've got organizations like the Michigan Association of Counties, the Michigan Townships Association, the Michigan Municipal League, that I would hope, I don't know, I don't work for them, but if as they're seeing that kind of stuff coming across, we'd hope that their members would be getting that information into their hands. But we do, everything we have is up on our website. So if you want more information about the grants, it's all there for folks who might be interested in looking at it.
The one thing that I can think of right off the top of my head is a new program that the Public Service Commission is actually going to be managing, is siting of large-scale renewable energy projects. And that will require those developers to provide community benefits to those communities, right? And so that would be one way of directly, bringing in some of that electrification funding as community benefits, so.
Absolutely.
Just the tad more information on that. Actually, in a lot of our conversations with contractors, turns out that actually a lot of rural homes that are reliant on propane for their heat have actually been adopting heat pumps pretty readily because it's so much cheaper than propane. The difference is that we're seeing cold climate heat pumps be adopted more in urban and high density areas. The heat pumps that, as I am told from the contractors, are the older heat pumps. Heat pumps are not a new technology. They've been around for decades, but they weren't able to operate in the colder temperatures that we see, so they weren't reliable for a year-round source of heat. Until recently, there are now cold climate heat pumps that we're really trying to push. But yeah, just as a sidebar, there is some rural adoption of heat pumps, yeah.
Yeah, and it actually is a net energy savings, whereas in the, folks who are on natural gas prices are so low, it costs less, so you're actually getting, energy burden savings by doing that, and that's a good point. It's a very good point.
You want to squeeze one more in?
Sure, do we have time to squeeze one more?
All right, Tyler?
We can, okay.
Fast question, fast answer.
Great.
Regarding isolation, where there will be enough of oxygen, what is the best isolation? And then, if the solar panels, if they will be bad in 25 years, what we're gonna do?
The question was about enough oxygen for...
If you do very tight isolation at home and you breathe, you will be behind oxygen then, how often to exchange the air then?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, a key component, once you want to seal the building, and then you want to also include it's sort of an ERV or an HRV, which pulls in outside air and distributes it in your home. And it's a very efficient way of doing that because it heats or cools, depending on whether you're heating or cooling. The exhaust air transfers its energy to the incoming air. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a very key point as you tighten your home or any building. You want to make sure you have adequate outside air.
Yeah. Energy recovery ventilation, ERV.
Yeah, thank you.
And we've actually been converting buildings in Detroit, doing air source heat pumps, electrifying buildings, and that's a challenge because we have to bring in ventilation. Some of these buildings did not have ventilation before. Now we have to bring them up to code all of a sudden. So it is, now air source heat pumps do improve indoor air, but you do need to get that, exchange of air.
Great. Cool. Well, I think we'll wrap up with a lot of gratitude and thanks, particularly to our panelists for taking your time and sharing your expertise with all of us. We need to thank AADL for helping to make this event, giving us a space to host it, and all of the tech support that goes into it. Jordan Larson for pulling a lot of this together. And then, of course, all of you who are here in person and everyone online as well. Thank you all so much for attending tonight. Just a couple closing notes on ways to stay engaged are you can attend more of these sessions, would be a great start. The next one is on February 28th, which is the last Wednesday in February. You can sign up for our newsletter. If you just search Ann Arbor OSI newsletter, you'll find it. And then you can also consider to apply to become an A2ZERO ambassador. And I'm actually very briefly going to invite Bryce, my colleague up here, to give a quick plug on what the A2ZERO ambassadorship is about and how you can participate in it. So Bryce, if you wouldn't mind.
Hi, everyone, and hi, everyone online. My name is Bryce Frolick, and I work for the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. Part of my job is running our A2ZERO Ambassador Program. So our A2ZERO Ambassador Program is just one of our community extension programs to the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. And it is a program where you can apply to be part of a cohort that goes through 12 consecutive weekly training sessions. And it covers various topics from like how do we consider equity in the sustainability field, how do we view environmental justice, and how does that intersect with all the principles of A2ZERO. So the strategies we talk about, electrification, local foods, community resilience, transportation, urban water. So it's kind of like a broad overview meant to have, even if you are not, let's say like this is your first time being involved in local sustainability or climate action, it's meant to be that sort of entryway for folks who maybe this is your wheelhouse, or maybe this is, the climate crisis has spurred you to action. This is like a great program to join. Applications are currently open until February 14th, and you can apply in a couple of ways. You can apply online. If you Google the A2ZERO Ambassador Program, you can take it to the webpage. And then on that webpage as well, you can see my contact information. And if a virtual application isn't accessible for you, feel free to email me. We can set up a time to meet in person or do a phone/Zoom interview as well. So yeah, applications are open until February 14th, and then our sessions start, I believe, unfortunately, I think the last Wednesday in March, so it might conflict a little bit with the sessions. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. If you Google A2ZERO Ambassadors, my name is Bryce again. Thanks, all.
All right, well, thank you everyone for attending tonight. Round of applause of gratitude to our panelists in the AADL. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next week.
There are sandwiches, so grab a sandwich. There's turkey and vegetarian, so grab a sandwich on your way out. So we just took everyone's dinner hour.
Fantastic. And I think we have 11 minutes before we need to vacate, but I'll be here if you have questions afterwards. Thanks, everyone.